Randy Ferguson is an international corporate trainer who has facilitated top-level leadership seminars in Mexico, Thailand, Germany, and Spain, as well as the United States. His clients have included Ford, Gerber, Mazda, United Airlines, and multiple branches of the U.S. government. In his professional career, he has led more than 1,000 seminars on leadership and personal development, and he's coached more than 2,000 people one-on-one. His business degree from Arizona State University, where Dr. Robert Cialdini teaches as well, the author of this book, combined with his master's degree in spiritual psychology, are both practical and visionary. Randy is the author of the best-selling book, Outrageously Fulfilling Relationships, a collection of 26 uncommon but vital insights from his syndicated column, Focus on Relationships. Randy also founded the Love, Courage, and Achievement Project here in Denver that helps people push through barriers that have curtailed them from creating an extraordinary life. Please welcome Randy as he shares with us how to become a fearless business and thrive in times of accelerating change.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I have really been looking forward to coming back and seeing a few familiar faces. I was here, I think last time 6 years ago, and poof.
6 years?
I think it's been 6 years. How did that happen? I don't know. Yeah, wow. So, my new grandson, sorry, I just have to announce it. My new grandson, week old today. He is came out 8 pounds 3 ounces, totally healthy. I am a happy granddad. Woo! All right. Good. Okay. Everything beyond this is icing on the cake. So, all right. So I want to share something with you that has been very useful in the realm of business. And particularly in the area of how we manage ourselves. I'm going to start with a story of something that happened to me. I was working with Ford in Bangkok, and with the president of Ford of that country and his chief operating committee. And anyway, so after this 3.5-day leadership training, I was the tourist, and I'm just looking at different temples and cool stuff. And there was one temple about the size of this room, and on one side there was this big statue of Buddha, and next to it was this glass case with these chunks of clay in it. And I thought that was interesting. I went up, and there was this little piece of notebook paper taped to this glass case, and I read it, and it shared a most remarkable story. Turns out that in the 1950s, the Thai government was building a freeway to Bangkok. And in building this freeway, they had to physically relocate this ancient Buddhist temple. And so the crane came in and was lifting this giant clay statue. And as they lifted it, it started to crack. And the head monk said, well, set it down, set it down. So very gently they set it down. That night, he took a flashlight, he shined it on the crack, and to his amazement, something from inside the statue shined back. And curiosity got the better of this guy. He took a chisel and a hammer, started hammering on this thing. And after about, a couple of hours, he stood in front of a 4.5-ton, 10.5-foot tall, solid gold statue of Buddha. It is the single largest piece of gold on the planet. And of course they researched this. What they discovered was that 300 years earlier, the Burmese army was coming south, attacking what was then called Siam. The Siamese monks knew this. So of course what they did is they covered up their precious statue with clay. The bad news was that when they came through, they took everybody that knew the secret. The good news was they didn't take the statue. So imagine this, for 300 years, people are walking, doing their daily activities, not knowing that this far beneath the surface is solid gold. And when I heard that story, it just hit me like a thunderbolt. isn't that true about us as human beings? Isn't it the extraordinary leader who's able to see the potential, who's able to see who's really in there and bring that forward? Isn't that the job of an extraordinary parent, is to see that potential and bring it forward? And so what this work has evolved to over time is something that isn't spoken too much in our culture, but is absolutely priceless. So, and that's the Golden Buddha. Can you see it? Yeah, it's just stunning. So today's agenda, I'm going to share with you some very specific tools that answer the question, how do you create internal mastery so that we produce external extraordinary results. And to do that, I'm going to share the 3 mind factors, the energy circle, the power and forward-focused questions, healing core issues, and then we're going to have a drawing. Most of what I'm going to share today is in this book written by a dear friend of mine, Stephen Van Oy. It's just sold over 500,000 copies. And it is the single best parenting book, leadership book I've ever read in my life. When I would fly around to these different corporations, prior to the leadership training, we would give them this book. And they would go, why are they giving me a parenting book? What's the matter with them? And until they started turning the pages. And then they go, oh my gosh, what makes a great leader, makes a great parent, makes a great educator. And so at the end of today, we're gonna give this away to somebody. All right, so how many of you believe that what's important externally, the measurables certainly in the area of business, the increased sales, the branding, profit margins, market share, innovation, all the externals that we want to produce in business, how many of you believe that what we create on the outside begins with how we manage things inside ourselves? Do you know what I mean? The self-confidence, the courage, creativity, attitude, tenacity, those kinds of things. How many of you, by show of hands, how many of you believe that what we create on the outside begins with what's going on the inside? You know, it's really interesting because more and more audiences are raising their hand to that. There's something that's taking place in our culture where people are starting to wake up that life isn't just about what we do, that there's more to it. And it's, to me, that's exciting. So I just want to add to the ruckus. So, okay, so where do we put our educational focus? Do we put it on the outside stuff or the inside stuff? Yeah. It's like most all of our education is on the externals, and of course we need that. But what we see is that there's quite a gap where we have an opportunity to step up and start learning and growing. How do you create this inner mastery? What's the how-to? And so that's what today is about. It's about how do you operate fearlessly? What's the how-to in that? And so I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite technology. All right. So, and as we do this, would it be okay if we had a lot of fun?
Sure.
Okay, because I've heard about you. just so you know. All right. Okay. So we're going to get right to it. This particular tool is when we do these trainings with these corporate leaders who had experienced, at least in their thoughts, every kind of leadership training already. You know, you're working with a Ford plant manager, and you know they've been in the business for 30 years. They come in, they go, oh no, it's another leadership training. But I'll tell you what, by Friday, they're jumping on the tables. It's quite exciting. This particular tool was one of their favorite tools. And it really talks about this thing called attitude. So, how many of you, when you were growing up, heard these words, you'd better do something about that attitude?
Yeah.
You definitely need to raise your hand on this one. Nathan, come on. Okay. All right. So we're told you better do something about your attitude. and then you're supposed to go to your room. Somehow you come out. But how many people told you how? How do you manage attitude? What are the mechanics of it? How important is attitude? You know, it's like we know that. We know that. These top corporate leaders, they know that. They know that if they have a really strong culture, they're going to produce great results. What they didn't have is the how-to. How do you actually do it? What are the specific step-by-step processes that bring this forward? So that's what this is. It's the single most powerful tool I've ever seen on managing attitude. So we're going to launch it with the 3 mind factors. First mind factor is that the mind can only, and I'm going to ask you to commit this to memory. People start writing as we get into this. 3 mind factors. Number 1 is that the mind can only focus on one thing at a time. Now, I didn't believe that because I am a multitasker. Do we have any multitaskers in the room? Do we have any parents in the room? Okay, all right. So, I'm a multitasker, so I can be on the computer, and I'm petting my dog, and I'm talking on the phone, and I'm researching a magazine, and, you know, all of that's taking place at the same time. Except that, in terms of our conscious focus, we can only focus on one thing at a time, and we shift and shift and shift and shift, and then come back again, right? And if you don't believe that, look at somebody texting and driving. Isn't that true? They are either texting or they're driving, right? And hopefully they shift back and forth fast enough that nobody gets hurt, right? So the mind can only focus on what? One thing at a time. Okay, hold that. All right. Second is that the mind creates in the direction of its focus. The mind creates in the direction of its focus. If you are focusing on your lack, what are you creating more of? Lack. Yeah. You start focusing on what you appreciate, you create the experience of prosperity. Prosperity doesn't come from having more. Prosperity, the experience of prosperity, comes from appreciating what we have, right? You start focusing on what you don't like about somebody, what happens to that relationship? This or this? Man, it starts to go down the tubes, right? DU did a study of 200 divorced couples. And what they discovered was that in every single case, without exception, one of those 2 people started to focus on what they didn't like about their partner. And when they did that over and over and over again, it ended up in divorce. The mind creates in the direction of its focus. How many of you are in sales? Okay, so, and we probably all made this mistake. You're going to go see a client, and you're thinking, last 3 clients didn't buy anything, they're not going to buy anything.
No, I don't think.
I know you don't. I know you don't. But we've learned lessons by making mistakes. And I've certainly done that at some point in my life. The mind creates the direction of its focus. You know, you walk in there, you don't want to buy this, do you? It's like, no, okay. Not such a good approach. The mind creates in the direction of its focus. All right, now, we've got, let's see, how much time, what time is it now?
You're at 12:15. That's a little slow.
Okay. What just happened?
We focused.
I changed the focus. How did I do that? By asking a question. Consider the possibility, third mind factor, the mind triggers on questions. The instant that you ask yourself or somebody else a question, the mind goes into search mode. And it does it like a knee-jerk reaction. It can't not do that. It's like your computer. When you're searching, you ask for that particular document, and man, that thing's cranking to find it. It is something that top leaders know, top educators know, top parents know. They use questions strategically. And top salespeople, boy, they know this. It's about asking the questions. If you're doing all the talking and they're doing a little bit of the listening, doesn't work. Switch it. Man, the mind triggers on questions. So we've got our 3 mind factors. The mind can only focus on one thing at a time. The mind creates in the direction of its focus, and the mind triggers on questions. Okay, have I been asking any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Okay, good. So, 3 mind factors. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to combine these 3 mind factors with something called the energy circle. And here's where it starts to get very powerful. Imagine that in this energy circle, in that circle, is everything that's important to you. It's your family, it's your values, it's your future, it's your prosperity, it's your possessions, it's the legacy that you want to leave. Everything that's important to you, imagine, is in that circle. Now, could it be said that every single one of us has a common asset called 24 hours a day? Yeah, we've all got 24 hours a day, for as long as we're alive. Could it also be said that our success is to a great degree a function of the quality of decisions that we make one 24-hour time period after another? In other words, you make a bunch of lousy decisions and you've got the cardboard that says, God bless, anything helps. Right? Okay, you make great decisions and you've got your own 501c3 to raise money for the needy, right? Let's take a look at the kind of decisions that we make 24-hour time period after 24-hour time period as it applies to the energy circle. So on the backside of that energy circle is something called what's not working. So if we're focused on what's not working, and the mind can only focus on what? One thing at a time, what are we not focused on? What is working, right? Okay, so here's where this starts to get very real. This is kind of more of a personal example, but boy does it apply in business. Imagine that you've had a really tough day on the job. You come home and you've got 4 hours from the time that you walk in the front door to the time where your head hits the pillow. Say you got 4 hours. Could you spend 2 of those 4 hours on the backside of the energy circle complaining about what didn't work and why it's not fair and it's stacked up against you, and that could you spend 2 of those 4 hours complaining? You could. You could. Doesn't do you any good. If you do that, does it help your family or does it hurt them? It hurts them. And can you ever get those 2 hours back? No. Nope, they're gone forever. But folks, that's not the greatest cost. The greatest cost is that if we focus on the backside of the energy circle, we literally have the power to pull our whole family to the backside of the energy circle. And if that happens day after day after day after day, how excited are they about hearing you come home? Do you know what I mean? And if you've got somebody who in your family who really needs parental guidance, really needs some support, really needs somebody to listen to you, and you're on the backside of the energy circle, how likely are they going to go to you? Not very. Not very. And enormous consequences when we start to live on the backside of the energy circle. Does that make sense? Okay. And does this apply to business? Man, we can hold our whole business on the front side or the back side. On the backside of the energy, on the backside of the energy circle, what's the problem? And on the front side, what's the solution? So here's a real practical application. I'm working with a major manufacturer. Let me turn this off because I know it's going to ring right in the middle of my presentation. Okay, airplane mode on. Thank you. So I'm working with the quality control team for a major car manufacturer. And the problem was that they were coming into the different departments like the Gestapo and just pointing out all the things that are wrong. And so they brought us in to do a training with them. And I presented this piece where I said, what's the problem? What's the solution? They stopped me. They said, Randy, this doesn't make any sense. We are quality control. You don't get it. We have to find problems. If we don't find problems, we don't have a job, right? Okay. So, granted, but what they realized is that they were coming in with these issues focused on the backside of the energy circle about what was the problem, as opposed to coming in and partnering with these people and going, what's the solution? See the difference? It was huge, and they discovered that on their own, to their credit. If they shifted the whole thing just flipped over. So, what's the problem? What's the solution? And by the way, none of this is about avoiding problems. You know, if you're having a picnic on a train track, you want to know if the train's coming, right? In business, if there's a problem, you want to know it. Let's put it on the table. But are we going to put it on the table on the front side or the back side? Yeah, makes a huge difference. On the back side of the energy circle, organizations are infamous for this, especially big ones. Who's to blame? A typical corporate agenda is who's to blame, or excuse me, what's wrong, who's to blame, how do we fix it? What's wrong, who's to blame, how do we fix it? Does that sound like a big time corporate agenda? So what it does is it creates a culture where nobody can speak up. We had one situation where huge firm, their research and development knew that they had a flaw in a product. They knew it, but nobody could talk about it because they were afraid. So what happened is it went into production, then it went to recall, cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, to say nothing of their reputation. And the whole problem was not systematic, the problem was cultural. Do you see that? So who's to blame? On the back side of the energy circle, organizations that are on the front side of the energy circle, it's about learning. It's like, what can we learn? We know that we've got great people here. We know they're doing the best. Are they going to mess up? Of course they are. What can we learn from it? Whole different approach. Does that make sense? It opens communication instead of shuts it down. If this is true in organizations, is it true in relationships? Something to think about. Okay. On the back side of the energy circle, what I don't like about, insert anybody's name. What I don't like about, insert anybody's name, obviously on the front side, what I do like. So, a little story here. Many years ago, I was in a blended family, and my stepdaughter was coming into her tweens. This is where you get to put this to work, folks. And so she's at this place where, you know, she's doing her cosmetics and all this stuff. So her bathroom looked like a cosmetic explosion, and her room looked like a tornado in a bad mood. And so I talked to her, and I said, okay, Katie, here's the deal. At the end of the day, we need this cleaned up. Will you do that? She goes, yeah, Dad, I'll do it. Okay, good. End of the day, what happened? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And so I'd ask her about it. She'd give me some lame excuses. And this went on. And there was just a period of time, a couple weeks, where it got worse and worse and worse and worse. Anything I'd ask her, she'd do the opposite. And it was like, there came a day where I was so upset, I had to remove myself. I took myself out of the house, took my dog, and I'm walking around and going, I don't have to put up with this. Never married. Nobody told me this. Never. Am I the only one? Okay, all right. So I'm out in this field with my dog, just fuming, and Buddy's just going, you know. And then finally, there's something about being in nature that's just so healing. And what happened was, I had to ask myself, what side of the energy circle have I been on? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized I hadn't been on the front side of the energy circle with Katie in the last 2 weeks. The only thing I saw was what she was doing wrong. And man, was I creating in the direction of my focus. I was humbled. I was humbled to tears. And I came back to the house. And here's something so powerful. Truly, what we create on the outside begins with what's going on the inside. The instant I walked in the door, Katie ran up, threw her arms around me. That instant. When you shift on the inside, the universe shifts on the outside. It is true. It is true. We are much, much, much more powerful than we know. And much, much, much more at cause than we know. Well, we can claim that. We can use that. We need fearless businessmen and women out there. We need fearless men and women out there. So, the energy circle. The question becomes, is the expectation that you're always on the front side of the energy circle? What do you think? No, not as long as you're human. I don't know anybody who's always on the front side of the energy circle. You know, realistically, I don't know that. Oh, there's another piece here. I'll come back to that. The expectation isn't that you're always on the front side of the energy circle. The expectation is that when you find yourself on the back side of the energy circle, that you get on the front side as quickly as possible. That's the expectation. Does that make sense? When you find yourself on the back side, you get to the front side as fast as you can. Now, this is important because, do you know what's the first thing you do if you're in a pit and you want to get out of that pit?
Stop digging.
Stop digging! Thank you, Joe. That's the first thing you do. Because whichever side you're on, the mind creates in the direction of its focus. So if you're on the back side of that energy circle, and you're just staying there, you're digging deeper and deeper, and as far as you dig, you've got to climb out. Does that make sense? As far as you dig, you've got to climb out. So when people have this awareness, their job is to get to the front side of the energy circle as fast as they possibly can. Now, one more distinction that I want to make on here, what I don't like about myself versus what I do like about myself. Now, a lot of times when I'm sharing this in a business environment, people go, oh yeah, well here's where, kumbaya starts. But I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this because it's important. Self-esteem isn't just about feeling good. Self-esteem impacts productivity, it impacts bottom line, it impacts your protection when things go tough, right? In other words, when self-esteem is down here, what's your productivity like? Yeah, what's your ability to make decisions like? It's like, I don't want to make any decisions, leave me alone. But when your self-esteem's up here, then, man, you're making decisions fast, you're strong, you're creating, you're making higher goals, right? And you're increasing your probability of having those goals come true. So self-esteem is not a small thing. On the back side of the energy circle, what I don't like about myself. On the front side, what I like about myself. This is an important distinction. Because when you're focused, well, let me ask you this. Which side of the energy circle in our culture do we have the most permission to hang out in?
What I don't like.
What I don't like, and why is that?
Probably because it's like learned behavior.
Well, people like
learned behavior.
Yeah, and say that again, Amy?
People like humility.
Yeah.
If I walk around talking about how great I am.
And it's also how every product is sold. You aren't good enough, you aren't young enough.
Yeah. So, yes, sir.
Because it makes money.
Makes money. Yep. Consider the possibility that when we're in this place of what I don't like about myself, one of the biggest reasons that we hang there in terms of relationship with self is that if you feel a little too happy, a little too strong, a little too confident, what happens if Monday morning you come to work and you go, woohoo, it's Monday morning, dang, let's get to it. I love what I do. You know why? Because I'm so good. Yeah, let's go. Do you know what I mean? In other words, in the name of not feeling arrogant and conceited, what will happen, exactly what you said, what will happen is that we will not allow this. We will allow this, but this is not allowable, right here. And if the mind can only focus on what? One thing at a time, and you can't focus here because it's arrogant, what's left? Do you see what I'm saying? And it starts to answer the question about why so many people are so stuck in the area of their self-confidence. Now, let me ask you this. Is there a big difference between arrogance and confidence?
Yes.
How many of you know somebody who's a really strong leader, but they also have a beautiful humility? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So consider the possibility that our job, one of our jobs, is to be on the front side of the energy circle for ourselves. We have, this is business. Doesn't sound like it, but it is. How many of you believe that you have a relationship with yourself? There's a way that you treat you. There's a way that you speak to you. There's a way that you honor you or don't honor you. And when people really get that you have a relationship with self, the next thing they start to get is that you have a duty to that precious being. You have a duty to have your life be great. Every single person in this room is an influencer. Isn't that true? Is it true that people learn by how you model? Yeah. So consider the possibility that your job is to be on the front side of the energy circle in your relationship with self, so that you can go out there and make it happen. And when people look at Lynn and they go, how are you doing that? What's going on here? It's like she's got some answers about that. So, okay, if you scratch your ear, I call on you. All right, good. Okay, so any questions about the 3 mind factors in the energy circle before we go on to what's next?
I have a
Yes.
question. What if you work with people or are around people who really love to live on the backside of the energy circle?
Yeah, they've taken up residence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I don't live there, so
Yes.
I find myself not really wanting to be around
Yeah,
those people because they're just depressing.
yeah.
So
yeah.
how do you bring them, or can
Well,
you?
first of all, I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of not wanting to be around them.
Right.
And that's a first level, something that you can do. The next higher level is that you can be around them, and through your leadership, you start to bring them to the front side of the energy circle. And that's what we teach. Because there's a lot of people on the back side of the energy circle. It's so funny because about day 2 or day 3 of our training, these executives would go, well, I always am on the front side of the energy circle. But I've got people on my team who are always on the back side of the energy circle. I hate judgmental people. So at which point we go, okay, got it. So here's the opportunity. There's always going to be people on the back side. There's always going to be people back there. The question is, first of all, you don't want to join them, but as soon as you start condemning them, you have joined them, right? So your job, your mission, is to be on the front side and bring these people to the front side as best you can. Now, some people are so anchored back there, they ain't moving. So I don't put a whole lot of attention on those. But there you go. There's always that 80% that can go one direction or the other, right? Okay, so that's what we do. How do you do it? How do you shift personally and with the people around you? How do you shift from the back side to the front side? How do you pull that off? Thank you. Thank you. Consider the possibility, we go to our 3rd mind factor, which is the mind triggers on questions. Okay, so I want to share this with you. Number 1 way of shifting from the back side of the energy circle to the front side, ask yourself and others a forward-focused question. So we know about open-ended questions, we know about closed-ended questions. Here's another way of looking at questions that's very, very powerful. Backward-focused questions, forward-focused questions, and neutral-focused questions. My dad was a master at backward-focused questions. Why did that take you so long? When are you going to grow up? Why didn't you think that out? Why didn't you follow what I said? How did you do it that? Why did you do it that way? What's the matter with you? Aren't you ever going to grow up? Now, were all of those questions? They're all questions. Were they forward focused or backward focused? They're backward focused. So as I'm sharing this with these top leaders, they start to discover something. And a lot of times they're kind of looking down at the ground at this point, because the way they've managed has been, why isn't that project done? You told me it was going to be done at this cost, and we're here? What's the matter with you guys? Well, aren't you paying attention? In other words, what they would do is they would cut people off at the knees and expect them to run a marathon. Doesn't work very well. And to my dad's credit, later in his life, when he saw what he was doing, he just stopped it. He just stopped it. Because it was creating damage. He never had the intention to hurt me. He had the best of intentions. But that's what he was doing. He was asking backward-focused questions. And little Randy's brain is going, what is the matter with me? Why can't I do anything right? You see? Because the mind triggers on.
Questions.
Yeah, the mind triggers on questions. Okay, so backward-focused questions pull us to the backside. Forward-focused questions, what's going well? What do you appreciate about this team? Okay, here's a forward-focused question. What do you appreciate about the Parker Chamber? Just shout out a word. What do you appreciate about you guys?
Friendships.
Friendships, unity,
Camaraderie.
team,
Camaraderie.
camaraderie. What else?
Activities.
Activities, education, opportunities. Thank you. So when you start asking forward-focused questions, you get people to the front side. Now, can you ask yourself a question?
Sure.
Yeah. All those questions you can ask of yourself. You're darn right. So forward-focused questions pull people to the front side of the energy circle. What these top executives started to discover is very powerful. That if they had a 1-hour agenda that was absolutely packed, if their team was on the backside of the energy circle, how many of you at some point have been in a situation where your whole team was on the backside of the energy circle? Okay? Yeah. All right. So when your team's on the backside of the energy circle, what this leader would know is that if I don't get them on the front side, we're not going to get much out of this meeting, right? So even though it was a packed agenda, they would take the first 5 minutes, get the team on the front side of the energy circle, and they get 10 times more in the time remaining. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This is important. Here's a little quick leadership tool. Have you ever spoken to a group and you ask a question, you didn't get any response? You know, it's just silence. Here's just a little trick. Ask them to write down their answer first. Just ask them to write down their answer first. Then they're a little bit invested and they feel more comfortable in sharing, and you will up participation. Okay? So you ask a forward-focused question, you come in strong. Okay, I want to ask everybody here this question. What have you done in the last 30 days that's accelerated you in your position, or however you decide to ask it? And you ask everybody to write something down, and you go around the room. They get on the front side of the energy circle. It's like, wow, wow. 4 times a year, I teach a program called Heart-Centered Leadership, the Heart-Centered Leadership Program. In it, we share 21 very specific tools on how do you bring the best out in people. And as you start to build this tool chest of all these different possibilities, you get better and better and better. It's a skill set. You get better and better and better at inspiring the people around you. Can that equate to dollars and sales? Isn't that true? Okay. Look at the questions that we're asking our clients. Yeah, there's a time when you want them to be in touch with their pain, but you do it from a place of service. And then you follow with some forward-focused questions. My gosh, when you buy this product or service, how is this going to improve your quality of life? What difference is this going to make for your families? Now, normally in sales, it's all about put focus on the benefits, right? Benefits, benefits, benefits. But this is 10 times more powerful. Rather than you saying the benefits, ask. Then it's coming from who? It's coming from them. Much, much more powerful. Okay, so forward-focused questions. Neutral-focused questions don't do anything. So Katie comes home from school and I say, okay, Katie, so how was school today? What am I going to get?
Okay.
Fine. Yeah. So one of these gets, you don't get any end of conversation. So the other day was, seems like the other day, some time ago.
6 years ago, because she told this story back then.
Did I? Okay. All right. So over 6 years ago, I had this situation with Katie where By golly. She came home and I said, Katie, tell me one thing that you learned today. You've been in school all day. What's one thing that you've learned? One thing. And she said, nothing. I said, not letting you go till I hear one thing. She goes, do you know that the surface temperature of Neptune is a minus 423 degrees and that's close to absolute zero? I said, no, really? She goes, yeah, can I go? Okay. But it did. It pulled her to the front side. We had that, we had that moment. So neutral focus questions don't do anything. All right. So here's a question. Here's a question. If you used forward focus questions to get yourself, your customers, your work team, even your boss, we teach something called upward leadership. Because doesn't this work up the ladder too? It does. You use the 3 mind factors, the energy circle, let's say just 10% more in your life. Not 100%, not 200%, just 10% more in your life. What difference is that going to make? So I'll tell you what I'd like to do. We've got a group of 2 here, a group of 2 there, 2, a group of 3, a group of 3, group of 2, and then Thomas will put you in this group of 3. Okay, we've got maybe you 3 right here. Okay, a group of 3, a group of 3. Would you take just a couple of minutes and just brainstorm a little bit so that this really becomes real and valuable for you in your situation? And would you share what difference is it going to make? What difference is it going to make as you live at least 10% more on the front side of the energy circle? Okay, on your mark, get set, go.
Lisa, I'm not really sure exactly what it's going to do with that. You don't want to be a part of it? The impact it has on our lives. Is that everything? Thomas, I know what you're going to do. I can feel it. To move to the front, to the forward side. You're going to ask more questions, aren't you? It's almost like it would just be not such a great idea. Like employee benefits.
Oh, yeah, they do. They really do. Oh, they really do.
Yeah, see, I was thinking some of that was a little bit different, but then you're right, he came back and brought it back to that, because I was thinking forward thinking, you're saying to somebody, instead of living in the problem, live in the solution. So you're getting them to look ahead to the future from that standpoint, but then he took it a little bit different direction, saying back to the other aspect of it. So, So how would this impact your life if you took 10% more? I mean, I'm going to say that, like most leaders that he's talking about, I kind of live there, but I know different things he's saying. But if sometimes do, I think obviously with what we do, not to stuff like if it changed 10%,
We're okay.
10%,
Yeah. And I do think like people that internalize and ask to let's just throw this stuff out there and then we'll come to a decision. They have to internalize things and they have to digest it and roll it around and they're not willing to participate until. But if you give them like, okay, we're going to come back next Thursday, we're going to talk about this, then they're more because they cannot do it in an environment like that. They can't do it. Yeah, not even at work though, just
Okay, time. Please come on back.
So I'm not, you know what I mean?
then they're like, oh no, whatever. Okay, I
I
don't
would love to
have
hear
to
from
do
your
this right
wisdom.
now.
Yeah.
They'll get hurt. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna
So if you're living just 10% more on the front side of the energy circle, what's going to change? Your thoughts?
Relationships.
Relationships. Bam. Thank you.
I think it's almost synergistic. Because if like my relationship at home's going better, I know I'm showing up better at work.
Yeah.
So 10% is really like 50.
Yeah. There's this reverb. Yeah, thank you. 10% more on the front side. What'll shift?
More options.
More options. I love that. More options. Have you ever noticed the better you feel about yourself, the more successful you are, the more options you have? And the opposite is true. Thank you. What else? Great ideas. Yes?
More energy.
More energy! Wow! What's it like when you've been on the backside of the energy circle all day? You know, you come home, you're exhausted even if you haven't done anything. Wow! Thank you. This is a very wise group. What else?
Quality of life.
Quality of life. Thank you. Quality of life. How important is that?
It makes you more aware of when you're focusing on the negative.
Yeah, when you're on the backside, so you're more aware of that. Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. Wow. Okay, so I would love to offer the challenge. I'd love to offer the challenge that you use your forward-focused questions to live at least 10% more on the front side of the energy circle. Just play with this. By the way, we have in our LCA workbook, we have all these tools. One of the tools is a list of forward-focused questions broken down by building self-esteem, in sales, in, do you remember?
It's
Bunch of different categories.
well, there's with children.
Yeah, your parenting.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're interested in that, on your card here, did everybody get a green card? Anybody not get a green card? Okay, on your card, be sure to check that box where we'll send you the tool, and I'll just email it to you. It's just really useful. As you get better and better, as you increase your skill set through practice, you get what comes with it. So, okay. All right, what would be the impact if you had an arsenal of specific leadership tools to operate at an even higher level of inner emotional intelligence? And this guy knows, you know. Okay, so I want to share a story with you that impacted me when I heard it. There's this single mom, and she's living in southern Florida. And her little boy wakes up, rubs the sleep out of his eyes, starts to gobble down his breakfast, says, "Mom, can I go swimming?" And Mom goes, "Yeah, sure, summer, you bet." So little boy finishes his breakfast, he runs out, screen door slams, he runs down the hill to this little pier. There's this beautiful Everglade in the back, clothes flying everywhere, jumps off the pier, and he's just having the best time. Mom's looking from the kitchen window, and she's just so proud of her little boy, and then she sees something a little odd. And what it is this log in the water, huge, and it's moving towards the little boy. She tears out that back door. She goes, "There's a gator, honey, come back. The little boy hears, comes, starts swimming back. She runs to him, grabs his hand. At the same instant, the gator grabs his legs. Now, that gator's 10 times more powerful than she is, but she's 10 times more what? Yeah! She ain't letting go. She's not giving that guy breakfast, right? She's hanging on. Just then a rancher comes by, sees what's going on, grabs a rifle, takes aim, kills the gator, but at that point the boy's legs are mangled. And, you know, the EMTs come, they don't know if he's going to make it, he's lost so much blood. Well, he does. A couple of weeks later, reporter interviews him. And you know how little kids are. He goes, "You want to see my scars?" And the reporter's going, "Wow, that's something, I'm glad you made it." And then the little boy, he's one of these kids that just has this depth. And he looks at this reporter right in the eye. And he goes, "You want to see something else?" He goes, "Yeah." Pulls up his sleeve and goes, "See these scars? This is where my mom wouldn't let go." Is there something in you worth fighting for? Is there a gap between who you are and where you are that's worth fighting for? I suggest there is. I suggest that every single person in this room has a duty to make a difference in the world. You got a duty to do that, and an opportunity to do that. By a show of hands, for how many of you does it absolutely make your day when you've had the privilege of making a difference in somebody's life? Yeah. Doesn't that turn your crank? Yeah. One of the things that I've seen is that the more people grow up that wisdom curve, the more their life is about giving back. The more that's what is your key motivator. The dollars are great, but man, I want to make that difference. I want to make that difference. Wow. So, I want to talk a little bit about self-sabotage in the time that we've got left. This is a big piece of the work that we do. Imagine how life would be different if you could dismantle self-judgment and self-doubt. If you could take it apart, like you could take apart an engine. If you could dismantle self-judgment, what difference would it make? You know, the thoughts that are taking place before you go to see that big client. If you could take that apart, what difference would it make? We do a technology called core issue work. And I just want to share it so that you know that it is another tool in your arsenal. What a core issue is a deep fundamental judgment that we made against self growing up at a time of hurt. You can't grow up in this culture and not get slammed. It's going to happen. If it doesn't happen at home, it's going to happen at the playground. You know what I mean? Stuff happens. And because kids are egocentric, meaning they feel like the world revolves around them, if mom is in a bad mood, or dad is drinking, or there's some form of dysfunction, or something's out of balance, what little kids do is they take it very, 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 very personally. There must be something wrong with me that mom didn't stick up for me. There must be something wrong with me that dad doesn't come to my games. There must be. And so what happens is that child makes a decision against self. And it's insulting. I'm no good. I'm stupid. I'm not worth loving. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I don't have what it takes. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. Now, are any of those true? No, they're all total hogwash. But to a little kid, they're true. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's all unconscious. And then what turbocharges this self-judgment is something called hurt. If it was just the thought, it wouldn't be that strong. But you take a thought, you imbue it with intense emotion, and it becomes very, very solid, even though in the big picture it's not even accurate. Then, because nobody teaches us this in 4th grade, what happens is we grow up into adulthood, we still have the core issues. And people will sometimes ask, Randy, how do I know if I have any core issues? And my answer is, well, first, are you breathing? Secondly, the real litmus test is if you know you have core issues if you ever get upset about anything. Because where core issues live are not in the circumstances, where do they live? Inside. They live inside, and they wouldn't live inside if there wasn't something inside getting triggered. So what we do is we take people through a process where you discover what they are. And when you take them out of the shadows and you put them in the light, that's the beginning of the end. That's the beginning of the end. That's when they start to lose their power. What happens is core issues get reactivated like crazy, and they act like a chainsaw to self-esteem. So when you discover what your core issue is, the key to it is not to figure it out, because it doesn't live in your head, it lives in your heart. The way you find out your core issue is it would be the word or words that would hurt the most if it was true. We know it's not, but if it was, those are the words that would hurt the most. When you go through a process and you identify them, all of a sudden light bulbs go off. Oh my gosh, this is why that marriage failed. Oh my gosh, this is why when things get a little bit too good, I sabotage. Oh my gosh, this is the dynamic that's taking place with this customer. Oh my gosh, this is the thing that is creating all this distance between this person at work and me. And where we counsel people to put their focus first is over here. If you take a look, anytime we're upset, and we take action from that place of upset, we tend to make things worse. But if what you can do is heal the upset, heal the core issue, then you move to a place of clarity, and from that place, most anything you do will work. Does that make sense? So I want to share this because in business, it is huge. How many of you make calls in your business? Do you know what I mean? To generate business, okay? And you've got those days where the phone feels like that 500-pound barbell. Do you know what I mean? Well, what is that? What is that? Consider this. People don't procrastinate because they're lazy. People procrastinate because they're afraid. And what they're afraid of is that core issue is going to get reactivated, all that old hurt's going to come up, better to not take the action. But by not taking the action day after day after day after day, our dreams don't come true. All of that can be turned around. You start to heal the core issue, new ballgame. New ballgame. It doesn't get to stop you. You start making the calls. You start visiting the customers. You start closing the deals. You start stepping outside the comfort zone, which is where you've got to go for the dreams to come true. Does that make sense? And it just doesn't seem quite so terrifying. In fact, it starts to get a lot of fun, because that's one of the reasons why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I wanted to share that dynamic. I want to offer something. If there's anybody here who's got a particular challenge, it could be personal or professional. I've been doing this work for 37 years. I've got a great toolkit. What I'm going to offer is a free consulting. You and me. Just you and me. It's 90 minutes. I don't charge for it. And what you're going to see is you'll discover what the core issue is, you'll discover what the pattern is, and more important, you'll see solutions that you've never seen before. So I extend that invitation. If you're interested, Nathan, could you stand up? This is Nathan, our Director of Community Relations. Let's give it up for Nathan. Woo! Good man. So he's got my schedule, and we can get you scheduled before we go. And then also be sure and check the box. It's that first box on your green card. So, I know we've covered a whole lot in a short time period. You guys ready for a little bit of fun?
Oh, yeah.
Can we do that? All right, good. See if there's anything else here. Okay, yeah. So, real quick story and we're done. Armenia, 1989. There's this young family in this little Armenian village, and this village is in the epicenter of an earthquake that is 8.9 on the Richter scale. It's about as bad as it can get. They have this little house, and for whatever reason, their house is still standing. Most of the village is collapsed. And what's happened is this. Well, he'd always said to his son, Armand, I will always be there for you. I will always be there for you. He'd say it over and over again. Well, he looked around. His house was a mess. His wife was on the floor, but she was okay. And then his mind immediately went to his little boy. So what he did is he ran out to the street, through all the rubble, and around the block to where his son's school was. And then he saw it, and it was a 3-story building that had totally collapsed. And he knew that his son was in there. Can you imagine? So the only thing he knew to do was to go to the corner of the rubble where he knew his son's home room was and start digging. And that's what he did. For 12 hours, he reached down with his bare hands and he moved debris. And he just kept digging and digging and digging. 24 hours. 36 hours. On the 38th hour, he moved a piece of debris. There was a little opening. He thought he heard something. And he said, is anybody down there? And then he heard the sweetest sound he'd ever heard in his life. Is that you, Dad? He said, yeah. Can you work your way up to the light? And the little boy said, yeah, I can, but I want the others to come out first. He said, what others? He said, there's 14 of us. That when the building collapsed, there was this pocket, and they kept saying, nobody's coming, nobody's coming, nobody's coming. And I said, that's not true. Because my dad said he would always be there for me. Is there something worth digging for here? So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me come and hang out with you. What I want to leave you with is that there is a very, very, very real way of closing this gap if you want to do it. And that's what I'm dedicated to. That's what Nathan's dedicated to. So, God bless you. Thank you for letting me be here, and we'll do our drawing. So.
Thanks for making us cry.
Okay, so this is the 10 Greatest Gifts book, and so what we'll do is we'll raffle it off. So help me, if you could help me get those cards.
He's drawing.
Okay, hey Diana, would you be our Vanna?
She's good at this.
Okay.
Oh, Randy?
Yes. Two more on the way. Okay.
Just a minute. One more.
One more.
Joni, is he from the area? I think they were. Because he's somebody.
Okay.
Who wants to win it? Who wants to win? I'm gonna win. I'm gonna pull my head.
That happens a lot. Okay, can we have a drum roll, please? The winner is
Joe Maxwell.
yes, Joe. Okay, come on up, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, you bet. Let's give it up for Vanna. Woo! One more thing. I have an event. This is a little short notice, but it's tomorrow. It's Wednesday evening. It's in South Denver. It's called How to Magnetize, Magnify, and Multiply Your Desires. Your sacred desires. How do you use your mind to attract things into your life? And it's a powerful technology. And it's $30 at the door, but if there's anybody here who can break free and would like tickets, we'll give them for free. So anybody want tickets for tomorrow night? Okay, great. Nathan, can I get these to you? It's at the Unity Spiritual Center, Denver, 3021 South University. So near Hampton and University.
What time?
It'll go from 7 to 9 p.m.
Wednesday?
Yeah, tomorrow. And then this one gives you a little bit more notice. This is just in time for Valentine's Day. And it's 5 inner breakthroughs that generate awesome relationships. And it'll be Tuesday, February 9th from 7 to 9 p.m. And same thing, $30 at the door, and the ticket will get you in for free. So a little more time for planning. We'll be sharing a lot of different stuff. So anybody want tickets for that one? Okay, tell me how many you want. Okay, there you go.
Can I see the, just so I can see it?
How many? Okay.
Monday as well.
Awesome.
And just so everybody knows, you'll be emailed the link for the survey, or just the little survey for today, so just keep an eye on it.
The white ones are for tomorrow.
Is it for more for couples?
Singles or couples for the
You're in
either.
a relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to be in there.
Okay, any more for February 9th?
Oh, makes more sense. Because
Okay, we're done. Thank you so much for letting me hang out.